Hey, Elon, great to have you on the show. How about if you introduce yourself and contacts or any other startups that you're involved with today?
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Elon Salfati. I'm currently managing a company called Salfati Group. We are helping a lot of startups go from the initial ideation to their first, what we call 1 million ARR, the product market fit. I've been in the startup ecosystem for the past 13 years, across multiple positions, always early stage companies. And one of the companies that I want to talk about today is Kontax, which is one of the companies that we have under the portfolio. Kontax is an outbound automation tool. We are leveraging AI to create a personalized environment and kind of automate as much as we can from the BDR, SDR positions. Because we personally believe that the one thing that AI cannot replace is the human connection, and we kind of want to shift the focus towards having more in-person conversations. And this is the strategy that we take across the product completely.
That's actually an interesting perspective because, on the other hand, you are eliminating some human connection, but I never thought of the claim of let's skip the point that's less important so we can get to the connection. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, we've seen a lot of people, especially because let's be real today. In any case, those parts are not really connected, and it's not really authentic. We are all using tools that kind of automate the process away because we don't want to deal with this part of the business. We want to have conversations with people who share the same passions as we, have problems that we can solve. We all want to bring value, and it can happen over like personal connections. It's funny because I think that it's funny to use AI to create authentic connections, and I think that AI kind of takes us back to where salespeople actually need to almost knock on doors and meet people face to face.
How so?
Because we all also understand that AI is everywhere now. Right? The blurs between reality and what's generated are kind of fading away. So you don't do business with something that is vague.
That's also a pretty interesting perspective I didn't think about. Because there's so much fakeness out there, the authentic and the real becomes even more of a bigger prize or something that you really go out for, the way that we're programmed evolutionary wise. We're really looking for connection. I think there's a lot of fakeness out there with whether it's social media or even sales outbound, the way that you're talking about that. So that's pretty interesting. So can you give me some more background about Kontax, how you got started with Kontax and where you are today?
Yeah. So contact started with me being lazy, to be honest. I started, I'm an engineer by background, and when I wanted to focus on a more of a, I would call it bootstrap approach for my life, um, I started to do what generates the most money, right? Services. It's the easiest thing to do. It covered the bills plus a lot more. And at some point, we got the first customers. It was like, friends of friends, but we wanted to scale. And the way to do that is to do outbound like most people do. I used other automation tools to create our outbound and outreach. We started with emails. It really didn't work so well. We moved to LinkedIn. It was fine, but not amazing. Like people kind of understood that it was automated away. So me as an engineer kind of created like a very small script. I think it's like Contact started with probably, I don't know, 60 lines of code. And I did it for myself, right? I connected to my LinkedIn, I did it to myself, and then send the messages, personalized messages over LinkedIn. The conversion went way up. But what we saw very funny is that most of the people that replied back to us replied well, I don't need what is it that you're selling. I don't need your services, but can you teach me how you do outbound? And it started from that, right? So it was kind of a unique experience for me. Like I've helped a lot of startups, I've seen a lot of startups, I've seen a lot of early stage products. It was a unique experience for us to not push a product into the market at all. Like usually you push it until the point that the market kind of knows about you, and then you have this pull effect that everyone is talking about. Kind of had it from day one. And what happened is that once the first company reached out to us, can you teach us how to do sales? We kind of showed them what we do. They were extremely passionate about that, and they are still customers to this day. They brought with them a lot of other customers as well. And that's what we're doing, right? So we had that very clear need from the market, and we built on top of that. The first release of the product, to be honest, I wouldn't have used it or paid for it, but we had paying customers, and that was the best validation that we can get. And since then, we are with over 100 customers that are using the system currently, mostly in emerging markets, so mostly in Brazil, which is also something that was unique for us, something that we have never done before. Yeah, we're scaling from there.
So basically, you started with outbound to sell a different product, and then at some point, people asked you about the outbound itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite the coincidence. I think Slack started in a similar way, right? Like it was something.
Oh, really?
They were supposed to be some form of gaming company. Take this with a grain of salt, and then like their chat system was just something that employees loved, and then other people wanted it also. So I think it's a really healthy process. You know, if you think of dog soothing, right? You're trying to do the opposite, right? Let's build a product and we'll forcibly use it so that it's interesting for us also. But here it's the reverse, right? Like you try to build something else, but then along the way you've figured out your dog soothing or doing something else that's actually working. So if there's something that blows up by itself, I think that that's a really natural, naturally you're inclined to discover why is this blowing up? Why is it working? Let's investigate this more. Screw the initial plans, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that since Kontax is also a bootstrap company, right? We are profitable today. I think we're profitable from day one because we were very conscious about how we do what we do, how we all use kind of all these AI tools that are extremely expensive, but we found really good ways to optimize it and also really reduce the cost for our customers and for ourselves, of course. So this approach to do things that only make sense, I think it's very important for many early stage companies because, funny enough, I think that early stage investments can sometimes be counterproductive. You have a bunch of money for an idea that was initially, cool, but then you are kind of pouring money at the problem, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. But when it's your own money, when kind of you pay the bills and it comes out of your income and the bank, then you're becoming so extremely efficient. And this is why I think many of the VCs today kind of expect initial traction for early stage funding because it gives you that, which is extremely valuable.
It's extremely valuable to be focused on being self-sustained.
Self-sustained, being very to hear your customers, to put the attention where you need it to, right? It's not just about building an amazing product. It's about building an amazing product that people want, right? And if people don't want it early on, you should start from there. The people want it. You have a set of customers that want something, they have a problem. and then you build on top of that and not the other way around. And it creates an environment that you become profitable early on. It creates an environment where you have a really good understanding of what is it that you want to build to the future. And honestly, your early customers become your best partners, which is also an interesting example that I can share. We have a customer called Fast Design out of Brazil. They are doing a lot of outbound and marketing services, and we kind of met very early on. They became our biggest advocate in Brazil. They are bringing tons of customers, and for us, we just listen. They have the challenges. They have been doing outbound services for years, and they understand the challenges and what works and what doesn't, and what can be improved and what not. And it's a game changer, right? If you listen, if you build for something that people want, and you do it early on, completely different experience.
So it sounds like things have been relatively good for you from day one, meaning like from the beginning, you said you were profitable, and then you had one Brazilian customer that's bringing on a bunch of other customers. Did this all happen in a low touch process, or did you have to do anything to make it happen?
Yeah, so I would say that Kontax is the success story, right? So I've had many failures before that, and it's not always like that. But specifically with this journey, was almost no business or marketing or sales efforts whatsoever. Like I would call it pure PLG, although I don't like the term so much. I don't recommend it at all for early stage founders. Like go there, meet your customers, do the sales, do the marketing, like put attention to the brand perception. It's extremely important. But I would say that at the very top of it, be great at customer success. Like just listen early on, do that. If you have that, you have other people that are advocating for you. It takes you through the early stages really well, because they kind of also give you all the materials back, right? So we constantly hear our customers pitching back our product to us and how they perceive it and what makes us unique compared to all the tools that they have already used. They kind of do our homework for us, and most of the customers perceive it like they are and not like we are. So we're kind of
Nice.
replicating that.
Nice. And regarding metrics or numbers, whatever you would be comfortable with, whether it's number of customers or ARR, can you share a little bit of your growth stats?
Yeah, so we are currently at approximately 100 teams that are using the company across various packages. I think that the average price per user is approximately $74. And maybe an interesting point here is that kind of from the Western world, though we are focusing purely on this emerging market at the moment, right? Brazil, if we get 1% of this market, like we are good to go. But when we're talking more to US-based companies, to EU-based companies, the one thing that we constantly hear is that we are way cheaper than the others, than the other tools out there. I think it's by design for us because since we're going after those emerging markets, if you put us in Brazil compared to what they say, we're kind of high end. It's kind of sweet spot in the middle that brought us to doing this very easy scale up, which for us means that we don't need to do a lot of effort, kind of reduce the friction as much as we can.
So basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, right, like when you think of product market fit, or if you think of going after a niche, or going after something specific and differentiation, many times you can be in a saturated market and it'll be very hard for you to thrive. But if you shift into a market where there isn't much competition, then suddenly, you become the Microsoft or the Netflix of a country that doesn't have those services.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this question because I've never done sales in Brazil. I don't know the language. It's something that was extremely like foreign for me. And I'm kind of sorry that I only discovered those emerging markets just now. But when we're going to customers in the EU, in the US, the big tickets, the big market that we're all talking about, um, the customers get constantly pitched to all your competitors. They all reached them before. They all like when you pitch them, most of the pitch is about like how do you compare? Why should we pay you? Like what value would you bring that other don't bring? It's like a lot of friction. But and we are in a saturated market. Like outbound is not new. We haven't invented the wheel there. But when we went to Brazil, most of our customers used to do outbound just by typing it, right? So they spent hours every day reaching to prospects on LinkedIn. And then where we pitch, hey, listen, not just that you don't need to do it manually anymore, you also get it personalized just like you wrote it. So we get the same results, just better because we can do it at scale. We'll get the same results per message per customer, and you don't need to do anything. Like I give you back 10 hours a day. I cannot give that promise in the US, right? I cannot give them 10 hours back. I can give them maybe higher conversion, but I can do now both, right? So it's a completely different game. And this is why we kept our price really low. And I think those markets, and I also think that a lot of people that just don't think about how this market is big. Like Brazil is what, 200 million people. In Brazil, it's a huge market. You don't need much more to be at a really good position as a company. And from there, it's really relatively easy to scale.
So I'm curious how these opportunities are created. I mean, like theoretically, you could have a bunch of tools that are widespread in the US, and the same competition would exist in Brazil, right? Like if they're aware of the problem and of new solutions, right? Like I don't know, Lemlist or other options out there, then why is it that they see you as the new leader? Are they not aware of other solutions? Is it the language barrier? Like what's causing it?
It's an interesting question. To be honest, I don't sure that I fully have the answer. I have assumptions. We're kind of still discovering it. But I think that by definition, most of the companies that we have encountered so far in this market tend to go with the cheapest solutions, right? So when you see Lemlist at 75, which it's funny, like we are in the same price range, right? But when you see Lemlist at $75 or a Growth Machine at $200, or you see like Outreach at like few $1,000s, it's like way beyond, right? So like we can only compare with tools that are in our price range that these companies in the market can somewhat afford, right? And you need to show that the results really early on, right? Otherwise, like it makes no financial sense. And then I think it's actually up to the founders, right? Because I think that and I might be wrong here, right? But at least from the people in my network and the people that I've met and talked to, especially in Israel, we are all kind of geared towards America. Like you want to raise money, you bring me an American customer. You want to grow, bring me an American customer. Like this is what we all kind of wired to do. So we don't look otherwise. And to be honest, kind of stupid.
So I'm just wondering, like I'm wondering if that's to do with market awareness, right? Like even if there are other tools out there, and I think again that it does have to do with the language, otherwise SEO and Google might solve a lot of their issues. But if they search for, how to do outbound sales, LinkedIn, I don't know what, and nothing good is popping up because all these other companies are marketing in English, and you're the first brand to enter that market and say, hey, I can solve this for you, whether it's in Portuguese or you happen to know the top players in a certain industry that does outbound, suddenly you're in the spotlight. And then you can start growing, right? Because it's almost like there is just no awareness, there's no understanding of the English language. I'm sure the younger generation does have an understanding. So I'm wondering if those create the gap. But again, I guess we're just at the speculation stage.
Yeah.
And another point that I think is interesting is, why do more companies not do this go-to-market strategy? Maybe there's a perception of there's a limit to how much they can pay, just like you said, how the price point is critical. Um, I'm still wondering though, like maybe there are plenty of companies that do this. I'm guessing that you would be more aware of the situation than
Yeah.
I would.
So, yeah, we are kind of getting into the assumption part of the conversation. I know that I would probably say 100% of our customers compare us to probably the major player in Brazil, which is something called Octopus CRM. It's a really, really old tool. The user experience is terrible. They pay fraction of what they pay me. So those who do compare us to other tools, like the advanced users, compare us to that. And there it's really easy to show like the differentiations, right? Because, within a month I can show higher results. And they get that for free, right? They get the free trial, they see the results early on, and like we're good to go. In terms of the marketing and the market perception, it's an interesting question because our tool is not in Portuguese. We do generate messages in Portuguese, but our tool is not in Portuguese. Our website is not in Portuguese. We don't have any marketing materials, no any attention to SEO. We should. I think that what made our experience quite unique, and maybe it's an indication of the market. Like, I'm not Brazilian, I don't know the culture so much, but this is kind of what we can see. There is a lot of trust between organizations. Like, most of our customers, I would even say probably like 99% of them are word of mouth. Like, I always kind of think about it like there was probably back at 2000 where you installed Windows XP, and Microsoft at the end asked you, would you recommend Windows for your friend? And like, I never talk about Windows with my friend. Apparently they do. And they talk about Kontax with their friend, and they just come the same approach. What we do put our emphasis on is building good connections and being trustworthy and being like honest about what we can do, what we cannot do. We're very, result driven. If you don't get result with Kontax, we will give you our money back. That's fine. And we try to create very honest, very real connections and human connections with people. And even people that we spoke to who are not our customers kind of advocate for us. And this is how we bring it. Hey, we'll definitely not scale, but this is how we start.
That's really awesome. I think we're going back to this human connection. And I think a lot of businesses lose sight of it, especially when you're more VC oriented or growth oriented, compared to companies like, what's that company? Gumroad, if you're familiar with, like they have this company policy. They barely have deadlines. You can wait a few days between slacks. There's no pressure. And they have like one KPI, which is to empower their customers. Like they have, I don't know, number of sales for each customer on their e-commerce page. That's it. You only have to move the needle there, and they don't hire too much, and they aren't focused on hyper growth, and that's it. So I think
I
there's
love it.
something very, yeah, I think there's something very nice about slowing down and focusing on the human connection. And I think that can also help with sustainable growth compared to, you know, the constant ups and the downs and the pressure and, why aren't these metrics where they should be and whatnot. So
Yeah.
if we look forward for context, do you have any future plans? Like what's your current focus on for growing even more, or maybe your energy is
Yeah.
elsewhere?
Now, so we are doing kind of two main things at the moment. For contacts, one of the things that we have identified at this point in time, we're focusing, like our focus at the moment is actually not growth. It's about bringing very clear value early on. Like I love what you mentioned about the matrix. Just one metric. How valuable are you to the customer? That's it, plain and simple. Like all the rest get way too complex and way too time consuming, and kind of you get lost in automate the matrix. So for us, it's that, right? How we can create the most value. And one of the things that we've seen, even for us, right, when we pitch other stuff and we kind of find other customers, like other ventures, then just outbound is not enough. And we're kind of starting to go a little bit into the inbound and content on LinkedIn. And what we vision for the future is kind of to focus a bit on the top of the funnel. And I think that will make us also very attractive to those US customers because many of the competitors that we have in the market at the moment are focusing purely on what they do, right? The outbound. And they look on it from a, in my perspective, at least from a very technical approach. This is the sales process, right? And in this sales process, this is the funnel, and you have those companies that do lead qualification and the potential for a customer to go and the intelligence and companies. They all focus on it from a very technical approach, which is fine. But then if you kind of go a bit upper in your perspective, and you kind of the more you go up, kind of the less you see the details, right? And if you do that, you kind of start to see the sales process much simpler. And I like simple stuff. And for us, when I pitch contacts to customers, especially like in the US, for example, then we constantly see this focus on like the outbound, the matrix, the how many messages you can send per day. But and this is kind of drives the conversation, but this is not what anyone really cares about, right? No one cares about how many people I can reach out to on LinkedIn, and no one cares how good the messages are, and no one cares about any of those. People only care about how many prospects go from this step to the next. How many of those I get to have a conversation with? Right? If I will send one message per week and it will convert, perfect. I don't need more. And what we've seen, if we have that in mind, is that if you take a step back, it's not just about outbound, it's about the inbound as well, right? The content side of it and content marketing side of it, and how, and that's actually not even enough, right? Because then you need to tap into those posts, those engagements to drive them through these outbound channels, right? So we're kind of automating all this process to both create the content, to bring that into the outbound side and to the outbound, which I think will get us to the next step of bringing real value. And then we can maybe change also the pricing strategy, which we hope to do.
Nice. It sounds really interesting, and it sounds like you also have a pretty unique perspective on things. I'm curious, what would you tell, just to wrap things up, what would you tell other founders who are interested in starting from value, starting small, and also considering emerging markets?
Listen, probably the best advice I can give anyone is to listen. We don't reach out to enough of, and I actually think that there are two groups of individuals that really want to help, and founders never take advantage of that enough. Other founders really want to help other founders, and if the people with the problem that you want to solve, they really want you to solve the problem for them. So just listen, just reach out, talk to them, be honest, tell them that you are doing, I don't know, market research. Every market research that I have ever done converted into a customer eventually. Just listen.
I like that. I think in these days it's pretty hard for people to listen with our attention spans, but
Fair enough.
definitely solid advice. Thanks so much, Elon, for coming on the show. How can people reach out to you?
LinkedIn, Elon Salfati. I'm almost always replying back.
All right. Thanks so much.